The 5-star character, Arataki Itto, has recently been released in Genshin Impact, and he has quickly become a fan favorite within the community for his extremely fun personality. But another reason why I think he's really interesting is the cultural basis behind his whole design. Since he is an Oni, a monster from Japanese mythology, of course he has some interesting bits related to it, but outside of that there are definitely a lot of inspirations from Japanese youth culture that might not be so obvious. So I've decided to do some digging to find out exactly where Arataki Itto's design elements originate from. As a quick disclaimer, I am by no means an expert on Japanese history or culture, so if you notice anything wrong or have something else to add to the discussion, feel free to comment it down below. When it comes to Itto's visual design, aside from his obvious red Oni horns, it's pretty difficult to pinpoint exactly what the inspiration is, especially compared to other Inazuma characters who wear clothing clearly rooted in traditional Japanese culture. But the cool thing is, well, that seems to be exactly the point. Visual kei is a movement that was pioneered in the late 80s by Japanese musicians. Taking inspiration from the Western cultures of punk rock, heavy metal, and glam rock with a few ties to traditional Japanese kabuki theater, it went against conservative, non-confrontational society as a way of expressing freedom and individuality. Although it is usually associated with the look and the music, at its core the subculture is about doing things differently. As an Oni, Itto is already different from the rest of society on a fundamental level, but the way he acts also differs from what's seen as normal. Like for example, the fact that he doesn't care about maintaining a steady job. He is clearly adamant about Oni integrating into human society, but through gaining respect rather than conforming to their way of life. So I feel like his character truly does embody these individualistic ideals. So finally getting back to Itto's own visual design, the spikes along his neck, wrists, and legs are reminiscent of punk fashion. Other standout aspects include his colored nails, his belt with a giant Oni buckle, and of course his very exposed upper body. All of this feels extremely non-traditional, and that greatly complements his confident personality. Another large aspect of Itto's character is that he's the leader of his own gang. The two main types of gangs ingrained in Japanese culture are the Yakuza and Bosozoku. The former of which is involved with organized crime, and the latter of which is primarily composed of troublemaking older teens who ride motorcycles. It may not seem like this has much of any connection to Itto because, as Granny Oni puts it, the gang is really just his friends hanging out together. This is also reflected in the Japanese translation, Arataki-ha, in which the suffix doesn't quite have the same connotations as the English word gang. They're a small group whose actions don't warrant the attention of the Inazuma government. They have a good reputation with the people, and Itto isn't the leader because of his strength or status, but rather his obscure talents. The thing about his gang though, is that it still does encapsulate the foundation upon which all Japanese gangs were built off of, that they're a place of belonging for people who couldn't quite integrate themselves into society. Itto seems to care quite a bit about his hairstyle, with one of his idol animations even having him bust out a comb to fix it. Now, this confused me a lot at first because Itto's hair still has that messy anime boy look to it. So I think that this rather is simply a reference to stereotypical Japanese delinquent boys who are very prideful about their hair looking perfect, with more particular styles like the iconic pompadour. Matching his fun and carefree personality are the games Itto likes to play. In his voice line about his hobbies, he lists some universal games like trading cards, spinning tops, and hide and seek, but also some rooted in traditional Japanese culture like kendama and beetle fighting. Literally translating to sword ball, a kendama is a toy in which you swing the ball that's on a string and try to catch it on one of the 3 cups or land it on the spike. It's an extremely simple game in concept, suitable for young children, but like with most things, there are some people out there that are just really freaking good at it. Lastly, Itto's obsession with catching strong Oni Kabuto and pitting them against each other in battle probably reminds you of a certain Japanese franchise of games. Well, it makes a lot of sense considering that Pokemon's executive director was inspired by his childhood memories of collecting insects when making the game. Unlike in the West, bug catching is very popular in Japan. His appearance in many anime and games like Animal Crossing is a testament to that. Rhinoceros beetles specifically are very popular for a few reasons. Called kabutomushi in Japanese because their horns are reminiscent of helmets worn by medieval samurai, they are seen as very cool. Both males and females can be bought from department stores for $5 to $10, meaning that they are acquired quite easily and can also be bred and trained for fighting. In nature, male rhinoceros beetles fight for control over the sap that comes from the trunks of trees, so they have a bit of a natural competitive instinct. After putting two together on a log, they will lock horns and the stronger one will stay on it while the other one is flipped over or thrown off. Don't worry though, as the loser doesn't actually sustain any serious injury. Outside of just harmless fun for kids though, beetle fighting is also a bit of a lucrative industry in Japan, with adults gambling on the outcomes of battles and particularly strong beetles able to be sold for up to millions of dollars. When it comes to Itto though, he's a pretty innocent guy, so he's not involved in anything like that. In fact, unlike other games he plays in Onikabuto battles, he is more prone to losing to children. Alright, so we all know that Arataki Itto is an Oni. It's kind of the cornerstone of his entire character, but it does go quite a bit deeper than him just having those red horns on his head. Let's start off with his relationship to beans. Itto really makes it a point to emphasize how allergic he is to beans, and unfortunately there seems to be an Inazuman tradition to throw beans around for a wide variety of occasions. In real life Japan though, this only happens on Setsubun, the day before spring starts in the traditional calendar, around early February. During the Mamemaki ritual, roasted soybeans are thrown at a family member wearing an Oni mask before closing the door on them. While they do this, they say Oni wa soto, fuku wa uchi, meaning Oni out, fortune in. The significance of this is that beans are thought to symbolically purify the home by driving away the evil Oni who bring misfortune and bad health, and so the practice symbolizes good luck, health, and happiness for the next year. So Oni aren't historically allergic to beans, but Itto being so allergic is a pretty cute way of referencing this cultural tradition. Another straightforward reference is the weapon Itto holds during his elemental burst. It is definitely meant to be a Kanabo, a two-handed war club used in Japan back in feudal times. Its defining feature is the iron spikes that run along its sides. Oni were often depicted using this weapon to demonstrate how physically strong they were, since they could easily wield a kanabo with just one hand. One of the main focal points of Itto's story quest is the fairy tale of the Crimson Oni and the Blue Oni. This isn't just some story Mihoyo made up though, it's actually one of the most popular cautionary tales in Japanese culture, and notably paints Oni in a much better light when compared to some older legends. Originally titled Naita Aka Oni, or the Red Oni Who Cried, it tells the story of a Red Oni who wanted to become friends with the nearby village's children, and a Blue Oni who pretended to be scary so the Red Oni could save the children and befriend them. Seeing how happy the Red Oni was now, the Blue Oni decided to leave to ensure he would not interfere with the Red Oni's happiness. When the Red Oni found out by reading the letter the Blue Oni had left, he cried, but his best friend never came back. The two main lessons that this story is meant to teach is that first, not all sacrifices are good ones. The Blue Oni thought he was doing the Red Oni a favor when it was actually the opposite. And second, you should cherish true friends because they are hard to come by. If the Red Oni had paid a little bit more attention to the Blue Oni instead of just having fun by himself, he could have stopped him. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the reasons Itto is so loyal to his friends is because he learned this from his ancestor. It's also pretty interesting how both sides of the story were reflected in the later parts of the story quest. Ending with some quick translations, the kanji in Arataki means rough rapids, possibly tied to the unrelenting nature of his charge attacks in-game. Itto means one dipper or unit of liquid, but I'm still not quite sure what the significance of that actually is. In Itto's talents, there are a handful of romanized Japanese words, so I'll briefly explain what each one means. His first ascension passive is Arataki Ichiban, with Ichiban meaning number 1. This is a bit of a play on words given that Itto and Ichiban share the same first kanji. Interestingly, the Japanese translation actually opts for the synonym Daiichi instead. In his elemental skill, Masatsu means demons killing, and Zetsugi means special move. In the Japanese translation, the next word is Iwaushi, meaning rock ox, which kind of makes a bit more sense compared to the version in every other language, which means red ox. And for his bull's own name, it's Ushi. His name is literally just what he is. Very creative stuff. And lastly, Itto's constellation name is Taurus Iracundus, which translates from Latin to raging bull. As for why Itto is associated with cattle to begin with, it's not quite clear to me. One possible explanation is that he took inspiration from Gozu, a demon general from Japanese Buddhism that has the head of an ox. Other than that, maybe just because he has a headstrong personality. So that about wraps it up for what I found on Arataki Itto's character design origins. The things I mentioned today weren't as clear-cut as the inspirations I talked about in my previous videos on Hu Tao and Kazuha, but I am pretty confident that they do have some decent accuracy to them. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching.